Welcome back to the New Leaf Education course. In our last session, we outlined the critical role of personal responsibility in safety-sensitive work. Now, we need to take the complex history of these testing laws themselves and place them into a clear chronological order. The modern DOT testing system did not arrive in a single legislative sweep. It was built piece by piece, responding to shifting workplace policies and public safety disasters over several decades. To understand why today's regulations are so rigorous, we have to look back to a time before the modern federal oversight structure even existed. Before 1966, the government handled transportation safety in scattered pockets. The FAA watched the skies, the Coast Guard operated under Treasury, and the ICC handled rail. This changed with the 1966 DOT Act, which brought these functions together under a single cabinet-level department. By the 1980s, the government began formalizing rules around substance use. Executive Order 12564 created the Drug-Free Federal Workplace in 1986, and the 1988 Drug-Free Workplace Act laid out expectations for federal contractors and grantees. These policies required written guidelines and workplace expectations, but they stopped short of requiring standardized, mandatory drug testing for workers handling heavy equipment or passenger vehicles. Having a unified transportation department and written drug-free workplace policies provided a sense of security. But without a mandatory testing mechanism in place, that safety was an illusion, leaving the transportation network wide open to a catastrophic failure. On January 4, 1987, a set of heavy Conrail locomotives blew through safety signals on the busy Northeast Corridor near Chase, Maryland, moving directly into the path of a high-speed Amtrak passenger train. 16 people died in the resulting collision. When the National Transportation Safety Board investigated, toxicology findings revealed marijuana in the blood and urine of the Conrail crew. This accident proved that relying on informal employer observation and voluntary policies was entirely inadequate. A high-speed rail corridor leaves zero margin for impairment. The collision at Chase made it painfully clear: if a transportation system relies on post-accident investigations to discover a worker was impaired, the system is designed to fail. 2 years later, the Exxon Valdez departed an Alaskan terminal with over 53 million gallons of crude oil, grounding on Bligh Reef and spilling 10.8 million gallons into Prince William Sound. This disaster showed that passenger deaths are not required for a failure to cause immense harm. A single compromised vessel devastated the shoreline ecosystem, local fisheries, and public confidence for decades. The investigation identified several compounding risks. The third mate was exhausted from excessive workload, the vessel lacked proper oversight, and the master failed to provide a safe navigation watch, possibly due to alcohol impairment. The grounding of the Exxon Valdez proved that substance testing cannot exist in a vacuum. It had to be integrated as a mandatory, enforceable tool within a comprehensive federal safety management framework. Following these compounding disasters, Congress took decisive action, passing the Omnibus Transportation Employee Testing Act of 1991. This act created the firm legal mandate. It required the DOT to implement drug and alcohol testing for covered workers across the transportation industries. But a mandate requires detailed instructions. This is exactly why 49 CFR Part 40 was established. It provides the exact procedures for how to collect samples, run laboratory diagnostics, and conduct medical reviews. Part 40 serves as the operational rulebook. It guarantees that whether a worker is driving a city bus or flying a commercial jet, the testing process remains fair, highly reliable, and legally sound. Testing requirements continued to evolve. In 2003, the Staten Island ferry Andrew J. Barbary alighted with a maintenance pier during a routine trip, demonstrating that safety hazards were shifting. 11 passengers died in the accident. However, the toxicology reports in this case were completely negative for alcohol and the illegal substances on the standard DOT testing panel. Investigators instead found tramadol, a prescription pain medication, and diphenhydramine, a sedating antihistamine, in the assistant captain's system. The focus shifted heavily toward unexplained incapacitation and a failure of medical fitness. The ferry crash proved that protecting the public requires continuous vigilance. Modern compliance demands strict medication disclosure and rigorous physical reviews. extending far beyond the initial boundaries of a legal drug screening. We can trace this evolution clearly, starting with fragmented oversight before 1966, moving to a unified DOT, learning from tragic public disasters, and finally locking in the omnibus mandate and Part 40 procedures. Before we continue, take a moment to pause. Write down 3 specific dates from the timeline we just covered, and note the regulation or event that occurred on each. Once you're ready, join us in the next video, where we will look at how the 6 individual DOT agencies take this federal testing framework and apply it to their specific modes of transportation.